Hello everyone, this is Sheetal Sharma, Assistant Professor in the Department of Humanities, the Bhopal School of Social Sciences. As we were already discussing Kautilya's political thought, this is the second video, the second part in the same sequence. Now in my first part, we have discussed why we study the ancient political thought. What is the importance of studying ancient political thought? Secondly, we have discussed the introduction about Kautilya, who Kautilya was, in which empire he was, and at which time period Kautilya's political thought were propounded. Now, we also discussed the Mandal theory and the contemporary relevance of this very prominent theory which is propounded by Kautilya. Now, in this part, we will again be discussing two very important topics. First, the origin and nature of the state, and second, the Saptang theory. Again, these ideas are equally important. But before starting this video, I would like to ask you one simple question. That when was the last time when you sat back and thought about it, that how the state came into being? Why the state exists at all? Most of you will instinctively reach to the 17th century Europe, but you would be wrong by roughly around 2000 years. Because to understand all these questions or to answer all these questions, we need to understand, we need to know about one person that is the most remarkable and still criminally undertaught thinker of Indian philosophy, that is Kautilya. The author of the Arthashastra, the one who established the modern empire and the one who propounded the Saptang theory, who not only given the theory of state, but who have also given the structure, the finance, the diplomacy, the spinner system and everything about it. So, to understand the origin and nature of the state, I would like to tell you about Aristotle's idea of state first. So, what Aristotle used to think? According to Aristotle, state is something which has come up organically. Organically, why? Because according to Aristotle, we are politikon zoon, which means political animals. So ultimately, state has arisen organically, means from families to villages to city-states, the state has come up. But Kautilya's thought is completely different from this. Now what Kautilya has said? See, first of all, Kautilya has talked about the state of nature. State of nature which was anarchic. Pre-state was anarchic. Anarchic means there was no king, there was no law, there was no order. Which means that was the Matsya Nyaya, the law of the fish, where always the stronger fish eats the weaker fish. Now, due to that, there was a lot of sufferings, there were a lot of disorder. Due to that, the crises were originating. Now, what were the crises? There was completely disorder in the society, no people were having rights, neither their life was protected nor their property was protected. Then, they came up with a very rational choice. The choice was to having a social contract, which is also known as Raj Samvit. Now, what is this Raj Samvit? So, they come up with this idea that we will have a contract. Who will have a contract? The contract was done between the subjects, the people who will be ruled, and the ruler who is going to rule the people. Now, what was that contract? So, we will talk about it later. First of all, we have to understand that through that social contract, Rajya was formed, and that Raj, which was the organized state, when that was formed, that played the role of Yogakshem. Yogakshem, which is also known as public welfare. Now, let's understand it. So, what was that social contract about? So in that social contract, there was an exchange that happened between the subject and the king. Now, what was that exchange? So, the people asked the king, whoever would be the king or the state, people asked that in turn of security and the welfare that state or the king will be providing, the people will be giving their share in the form of tax, that is 1/6 of the grain, 1/10 of the trade and goods and their gold. For that, which would be provided by the people, king will be providing the security and protection. Now, this is also happening today. In contemporary time also, we have a state and that state provides us protection, security, and in turn we pay the taxes, right? Now I have made you clear about one thing, that how the state has originated according to Kautilya. Now we will understand the nature of that state according to Kautilya. So I will be providing you a scale. So suppose this is a scale, and this side, my left hand, represents the idealism and this side represents the realist. Idealist thinkers are on this left side and realist thinkers are on this right side. So most idealist thinker is Plato, and most realist thinker that is considered today is Kautilya. Now everyone other than them, like Aristotle, Rousseau, Hobbes, Locke, everyone who have talked about the social contract theory or who have talked about the origin of the state, are falling in between these two extreme points, that is idealism and realism. As we know that Kautilya is the most realist thinker, so it means the thoughts that have been provided by Kautilya are very pragmatic and realist too, right? So it means the nature of the state is going to be very pragmatic, right? First of all, according to Kautilya, state is not natural. Why? Because it is not coming up organically, it is coming out of a social contract. So state is constructed and it is not organic. This thing is clear. Now second, it is a contractual thing where king earns the legitimacy through performance. Performance as such, king is performing his duty by protecting people, by safeguarding them, by giving them welfare schemes and all. And in turn, people, what they are doing, they are providing the legitimacy to the king. Now, the state is going to be very realistic and pragmatic, which means that state is going to be end oriented, where if ends well, that all's well, which means that if espionage is required, the king should be ready for using the espionage system. If war is required, king should be ready to have war. And if deception is required, these all things are permitted according to Kautilya for a state to thrive and to make sure that it is secure and safeguarded. Now let's move forward and understand the Saptang theory, which is provided by Kautilya. This is the main theory through which Kautilya has explained the idea of state, where Kautilya has explained what state is, right? So Saptang, what does this mean? So literal meaning of Saptang is Sapt means 7 and Ang means limbs. So here through Saptang theory, state has been explained as an organic entity where it is having 7 limbs, and each and every limb is equally important. Suppose state is considered like a human body. In human body, every part is equally important, whether it's hands or legs or eyes or anything. So without any of them, we'll be not able to function properly and efficiently. Similarly, in a state, all the 7 elements that Kautilya has talked are equally important. Now what are those 7 limbs? First is Swami, second is Amatya, third is Janpad, fourth Durg, Kosh, Dand and Mitra. Now all these together will be able to provide Yogakshem, welfare of the people and security. Now, although you know that there are many thinkers who have propounded the theory of social contract, and there are many thinkers who have given the state origin theory. Now, what makes Kautilya's theory distinctive from others? So, as we know that it predates the West theories by almost around 2000 years. Second, it is empirical and not ideal, which means it is based on observation, experiences and pragmatic thinking. Third, it is structurally complete. Kautilya has provided a very structured theory of state. Now let's move forward and understand the 7 limbs of Saptanga theory. So first of all, let's understand the sovereign king, that is Swami. In Arthashastra, Kautilya has provided a very good quote which says that a slothful king destroys himself. Now, here slothful doesn't mean literally sleeping king, but here slothful means the king who is not vigilant, who is not aware, who is not knowing what is happening in his surroundings, who doesn't know that what his opponent is planning and what is going on in international arena. So Kautilya says that such king will not be only harmful for the people of that state, but also be destroying himself. Second thing, Amatya. About Amatya, king has clearly mentioned that the ministers who have 3 things. First, virtue, he should be virtuous. Second, he should be wise enough, that is wisdom. And third, totally loyal towards the king. If the ministers, the Amatya doesn't have these three things, he cannot serve the state and state would not be able to function properly, and that's why Kautilya has propounded about three Amatya. Now next is Janpad. What does that mean? Janpad means territory and people. Territory which should be very fertile and people who should be very industrious. Only then a state would function efficiently and properly. Now again there is fourth element, that is Durg. Durg means a city which is having walls or which is fortified from all the surroundings. Now why this is required? Because if the king is not protected, how the king would be protecting the people, the subjects of that state? So that's why Durg is very important and very essential. Next is Kosh. Kosh, again the treasury. Treasury is very important. Why? Because all other elements of the state would only be there and would only be functioning if there is treasury. Enough money is required, right? Why? To maintain the armies, to maintain the ministers and to run the kingdom. Then Dand. Dand, which means two things, military and coercion. Military, everybody understands the importance of military for a country, for a state. And other thing is coercion, which means punishment. So if there is no fear among the citizens of this state about the punishment that would be given by the king for committing crime, then people will not be obliging the king and they will not be working according to the rules and regulations that has been set. So punishment and coercion is equally important and very important. Mitra. Why Mitra is important? Because we have already understand in the Mandal theory that your neighbor, the state's neighbor is the enemy and enemy's enemy is your friend. Now that's why alliances are very important for any country to work properly, because only those strong alliances are going to help you in the scenario of war or any kind of danger that is coming towards the state. So this is what the 7 limbs mean in the state theory. Now you understand that each one of them is very important. Before concluding this video, I would like to tell you that what is the relevance of this Saptang theory and this state origin theory in today's time. In 2026, which is the era of climate crisis, like there are extreme weather conditions, there are floods, droughts and all kind of calamities are faced by people, and there are geopolitical tensions. We are already witnessing a lot of wars happening around us, and specifically in the Indo-Pacific region, security is required. Then for sustainable development goals, strong alliances and resource management guides the policy, the foreign policy of the country. Now, what are the key takeaways from this theory? So, from the ancient times, there were a lot of thinkers who have been talking about states and the theories of state and everything. And this effective statecraft has been provided by many thinkers, and one of them is Kautilya. Now, this clearly mentions that each and every state requires two things. First is balance and another thing is foresighted. So if any statecraft is rooted in these two things, then state would thrive. Now, we know that to make sure that in 21st century, which is a fast changing world, we require resilient nations, and resilient nations are made up of balance and foresightedness. So if the king is able to, which means the state is able to foresight or think or predict what is going to happen in future, then only he or she will be able to fight with the uncertainties that are happening today. So thank you for watching this video.